Gemma Bradley's here.
I kind of started getting into music when I was around 9. I started Radio Ulster in like October 2019, and then COVID happened. I felt physically sick. They said to me, you can't tell anyone, like you're not allowed to tell anyone. It was really scary for me because I wasn't used to chatting about racism and people trolling, kind of online bullying, that sort of thing, and it's a lot. It'd be so much fun just having live guests and music. So much fun.
How's it going, people? Welcome back to another episode of the Here's the Crack podcast. We've got a guest today. You're our first guest in a wee while.
Oh, really?
Yes. Gemma Bradley's here.
Hello.
Do you have like a little thing on the radio where you can like put people like applauding and stuff in?
I could do that if I wanted to, but I don't know if it might sound a bit weird.
Yeah,
maybe like
fair.
applauding myself.
We used to have sounds on this, and then I formatted the SD card. Shay worked very hard to put sounds on the
like
on
100 on it.
Literally, we were scrolling for ages, and just like we played with it a lot when it first arrived. But then I formatted the SD card, and we've lost it, so I'm not entirely sure. But I wish I had an applause thing. That would have been cool. Sorry about that. I'll be more prepared next time.
I mean, we could just use our hands.
Yeah.
You know. Yeah.
But thank you very much for coming on. Bit of a weird one in terms of like how me and Aaron met you at Titanic Distillers. We were all at Titanic Distillers, and then we ran into you and your friend in the car park, who definitely should start her own podcast.
Rogan, if you're listening, start your own podcast. Yeah.
But I suppose for people listening and wondering who you are, do you want to just give a bit of an introduction to yourself, who you are and what you do?
Yeah, I guess so Gemma Bradley, that's my name. I'm a musician, songwriter, broadcaster. So I work in radio and TV and do all of that. I find it so awkward talking about myself.
Yeah. Really?
Yeah, I think because the shoe's usually on the other foot, you know. Yeah. Usually I'm the person interviewing people. So when people ask me questions, now I'm like, oh, I don't like
strange.
this. Yeah, it's strange.
Spotlight is on you. We actually did a podcast recently, and it was quite we found that quite weird to be interviewed.
Like not having the control of like what you're talking about and stuff. It's sort of like what
you find yourself being asking questions, then sort of just asking a question back.
Yeah.
It's like, this feels so alien though. So.
They're like, what do you think? And we're like, no, what do you think? Flip it. In a reverse. There you go. But yeah, obviously, like I think story's cool and stuff. Like you do a lot of the stuff you do on radio is introducing like new talent. You obviously work for BBC Radio Ulster. You do that sort of side of things for the Irish talent, but then you also do BBC Radio 1's introducing, which is sick. We'll get into that. But I suppose sort of like growing up, did you always have an interest in music? I suppose that's a standard question that everybody asks, but I think it's quite an important one. Like what was it like sort of growing up? Was there musical people in your family? What was that sort of like?
Not really. There wasn't that many, right. To be honest. I think one of my aunties did play the saxophone back in the day, but I've never seen her play the saxophone, so yeah, she might not. Who knows? But no, growing up, I kind of started getting into music when I was around 9. I started playing guitar at school. What I really wanted to do was play the violin, but you had to audition if you wanted to play an instrument at my primary school. And I auditioned to play the violin, forgot the words to Mary Had a Little Lamb or Twinkle Twinkle Little Star, something stupid like that. And they were like, sorry, no. It's like, okay.
Rejected.
Yeah, basically.
We did that in primary school too.
Yeah.
It was like
audition to play an instrument.
I know.
At 9 as well.
I know.
Intense.
Pressure was on. I took it very seriously, was heartbroken I didn't get into violin. The next week was guitar auditions, and I was like, this is my time. This is my time. So
pass me the guitar.
Literally.
You're looking at the teacher you rejected. You like, yeah,
wait to see this.
I'm gonna show you.
So we did that, got in, made it this time, and then I attended like a music workshop in my local town, Draperstown, run by Glasgowbury, who actually used to run a festival in the Sparrow Mountains, which was fantastic back in the day. So I did like a music workshop there, and I just like really fell in love with music and what it could be, and songwriting and playing the drums, and it's like, okay, I want to like continue to do this. So started playing and writing my own tunes around that age as well, and then started gigging about 14 or so. I don't know why the bars let me in, but they did. And just kind of didn't look back from there, you know, always attended gigs, played them as well. That festival that I mentioned, Glasgow. It was my first ever festival slot. I think it was about 16.
That's
And
crazy.
it was mad when you think about it, but it was so great to have an outlet like that, especially like Draperstown's a really rural area.
Yeah.
It's in the sticks, you
The
know.
only thing I knew about Draperstown is Grady Quinn not from there. The
the
sweet
that's
shops out there, yeah.
Yeah, because we went to visit him.
I think the galvanizers is out there. My dog goes to.
Nice. They did a good word for his dad.
I'll make sure to.
What was that like though? Like starting to play gigs in pubs and stuff at 14. Was that not a bit daunting at the time? Like?
It really was. I used to actually have this thing where when I picked up the guitar, there were people around me that maybe weren't my mum. I just sweat. Like I would get really, really sweaty. But then eventually I kind of got over that the more I did it. I suppose this practice makes perfect, as they say. But I really enjoyed it, and I think that's kind of where I cut my teeth and started to perform rather than just sit and play, you know.
Were you never like nervous or anything, or was it just come naturally?
No, I was definitely nervous.
Yeah.
Definitely. I think anybody, you know, who gets up to play, I think you're gonna be nervous, and if they say they aren't, they're lying. Definitely. But even now, I would still get nervous for some gigs that I do, and I've been doing it for a while now, so
Yeah.
Was it? I take it was just like small pubs. Like, is there pubs in Draperstown?
yeah, at one point we had like 5 or 6 pubs.
Why is that a thing in Northern Ireland?
It's like Katie.
Why is that a thing?
You're like 12 and Katie.
Like literally, it's like this. Here's this small town. Blink and you'll miss it. But we have 5 pubs.
I know.
yeah.
Maybe like 1 or 2 shops, but we have the pubs.
A Sintra, 5 pubs, 7 churches. We're fine. That is mad. So like, what like at that age? I suppose like looking at what you're doing now, it's obviously crazy. But like at that age, was there anything that was like you got the opportunity and you were like, holy moly, like this is going somewhere? And
I think for me it was the consistency with the gigs. Obviously getting to play that festival slot was my mind was blown with that, you know, and then continuing to do gigs, and I was like, oh, actually, you know, people could book me for things. And as I kind of got older and was at school doing them, you know, I was known as somebody who played music and played gigs, and I just found that really exciting, and getting to do things in school too. You know, it was just, it was a fun time. So I was like, this could be a career for me, I think. You know, and I started to take it more seriously the older I got and the more kind of gigs that I did as well.
And was there ever anything else you wanted to do whenever you were younger, like, or was it just always that?
Well, what I actually wanted to do when I was really young, because I love food, I was like, I want to be a food critic when I grow up. That's what I wanted to do. But I realise now that I don't like a lot of foods. Well, not a lot of foods, but I'm not saying that I'm fussy, but you know, there's certain things like I can't be dealing with mayo, and everybody loves mayo.
Mayo's in
not me.
everything, like,
you know, so can't really be running around being a food critic. But yeah, I think music was always my main passion. When I was leaving school, though, I was panicking because I was like, what am I going to do? You know, I don't know how viable music is, so I'm just going to maybe study and be a radiographer. That was what I was going to do. Which obviously I ended up not doing. But I remember the night before my UCAS was due in, I was sitting doing my personal statement because I'm a big procrastinator. And my mum, I gave it to her just to read over, and she was like, do you actually want to do this? I was like, no, I don't. She's like, then why are you doing it? I was like, it's just, you know, it's the thing to do. You know, you know, finish school, go to uni and study something you're maybe not that interested in, because you don't really know what else to do. You're kind of buying yourself some time. But she just kind of took me aside and was like, what do you want to do? I told her music. And she was like, well, do music then, you know.
That's so cool.
That's so cool, your mum.
I feel like most parents would be like,
my mum
what
would be
career
ahead
can
of
you
me.
make the most money in? Like,
Yeah.
I don't think my one's ever sat me down and were like, what do you enjoy? It's like,
Let's
you're going
talk
to
about you.
Yeah, what do you enjoy?
Get staying
Tell me
with the
about
lads.
having an existential crisis.
Can I drink for a living?
I can't even remember having that chat with my man.
I didn't have that shit.
Yeah, I don't think it ever occurred. But
Really?
fair play to your mum.
That's sick.
What was the route then after that? Like, what did you have in your head that you had to do to make this a success?
So what I actually did then was I studied down in Dublin at a place called BIM, and it's a music, like uni music college. And my course that I did was commercial modern music and songwriting, which is great because it was perfect for me, and it gave me about 4 years to just really focus on my craft, get myself immersed in the Dublin scene because I lived down there for about 3 years, and which is great for networking. Is one thing I would say about studying down there is I met so many people, and now I know people all across Ireland that are in the music scene, and it's due to being in that sort of space for a while. So that's kind of what I did for a bit.
Did you meet any like big names when you were there, or like?
No, I don't think. I'm trying to think. Well, actually, Fontaine's DC. No, you don't.
Sounds familiar.
Oh,
and we should stop asking these questions. We asked the question before we started, and they're like, do you know her? And they're like, no.
But they're pretty big at the moment. But they would have studied at BIM essentially.
Yeah.
Google them though. After this, Google them.
I think James Bay studied at BIM, didn't he?
He did, not the one in Dublin
Over
though.
in England, yeah. Because I remember it was like one of them UCAS days, and one of the things I was interested in was like, is it A&R, or like you used to go on like, it's like you go.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I remember like talking to someone about that, and I was like, that sounds sick, and I was like talking to them left, going like, oh, this place sounds unreal, but then didn't actually go. But
you went and chose marketing.
I suppose, but it's sort of the same thing. Like it's sort of like, I could be completely wrong, but it's like you basically work with an artist and like book gigs, and like actually like that's Scooter Braun done that.
Yeah,
like becoming a manager.
Basically, it's the type of thing.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, enough about me.
Our guest today is Tommy. I think that's cool though. Like the fact that the way I see it, with being especially over here, we have like this very like traditional. That's the like you hit the nail on the head. That's the thing you do, and I think it's like little things as well that you were talking about there. Like, sorry, my phone's making noises. I think it's the thing you were talking about there in terms of like leaving school. You were like, this is the thing I have to do. But like for someone out there now who say wants to go down that route of music, like I didn't even know BIM was a thing. Like to me, the fact that you can go study it, it's like, it's a bit, I didn't think that was a thing, if that makes sense. So like if someone's out there at the minute and they're thinking, no, like I'm passionate about music and that's what I want to pursue, I think a lot of the mentality over here is like, well, yeah, put a pin in that, because you'd be very lucky if that happened, if that makes sense.
Yeah, you're totally right. I actually remember being in a careers class, might have been lower or upper sixth, and my careers teacher was going around asking everybody what they wanted to do at uni, what was the course they were going to do. And it came to one girl in my class, and she said she was going to study drama at Queen's. And he looked at her, laughed, and said, "You'd be lucky if you managed to do that. You'll be singing around the aisles in Dunnes Stores, love." And that will always stick with me, because one, it is savage, and two, you should not be saying that as a teacher.
That was terrible.
That girl was Saoirse Ronan.
But yeah, it was really savage, and I just thought that, gosh, that's such a bad mentality to have. And if you're supposed to be pumping people up as a careers
especially
advisor.
Kids,
yeah, so and sometimes I think you don't realize how influential you can be to somebody quite young, especially when they're in those vital moments of deciding what I want to do. But I'm so glad that I picked music and went with my heart, because I'm so much happier for it, because I would have been the worst radiographer ever. I know I would, and just wouldn't have been able to study it, because my attention span, it just goes like that. Yeah.
Did your girl go on to do drama?
She studied it, I think.
Oh, she did?
I think she did study it. Don't know what she's doing now though.
Done stores. Hopefully not done stores. Was there any times though, like you're quite young at that stage, like even like grow up in school, like I think that there's, I suppose all schools have it, but like for yourself, were you happy to talk about music, or was there people who were like, here she's doing music, or like, do you know, that sort of negative side of things where the route you're going down is quite like, it's quite niche, if that makes sense? So did people get it in school? Were they supportive in school?
I think everybody was. I'm quite lucky that I think it's because I kind of grew up doing music, and it was always a thing that I did, because I played sports as well. So people kind of knew that I played music, so they were like, oh, that makes sense. Yeah. Which was really nice, because usually there is backlash being like, oh, you're still at the music, are you? Yeah. You know, that kind of thing. Yeah. So Actually, I do remember my great uncle actually saying to me, he was like, "Oh, music." He was not impressed at all. He was like, "You should do the radiography." I was like, "Oh no, I can do the music." He was like, "Are you sure?" I was like, "Yeah, I'm sure." But apart from that, I never really got any backlash, which was really great. And I'm very lucky that I didn't.
Yeah. What was the crowds like at that the festival and stuff you did, like for the first time? Like what sort of crowds were you singing to, like number wise? Were you walking out and being like, oh shit, this is mad? Or
I mean, for me at that age, because I was so young, it was really nerve-wracking. I actually first festival performance, I went actually to my first over 18s rave, we'll call it, like a few nights before. I don't know why I'm throwing hand symbols here. But went out, wasn't drinking or anything. I was young, but I lost my voice and I was really stressed.
You must have been raving mad, like, yeah.
Clearly. At home at like 12 or something stupid, you know what I mean? But I was really stressed a few days before it because I was like, I've never lost my voice like this. What am I going to do? So that first performance, it wasn't a perfect performance, but I was so nervous, and it was a small tent, you know, and there was a good crowd, although I do think that's because of the performer that was coming on after us. But it was fine. It was just really nice that we weren't playing to just our parents. So it was a new experience for me, but I really loved it, but had like one crack during it with my voice, which at that age we're like, that's the most embarrassing moment of my life. But I got through it. But yeah, it was a really special experience, and it'll be something I think I'll always remember because I was like, it really solidified for me, this is what I want to do. Yeah. Nice.
And like, obviously you went and studied at BIM, and then what sort of happened after that? Like when you, I take it you graduated or whatever from there, but like was sort of stuff happening at that time you were like, this is going somewhere, or was it a while after that?
Yeah, I think for me, like I was quite busy with gigs. I was gigging left, right and centre, getting booked for festivals, and it was really, really great. I was like, oh, this is fantastic. I was on like a talent development program that was actually run by the OES Centre here in Belfast. It was called Scratch My Progress, and it's a really good kind of scheme for young musicians to get on and learn all the different sides of the industry. You know, we had meetings with A&R people actually from labels. But yeah, it was really helpful. So I was on that and was really getting into a rhythm with things. And I was like, okay, what I'm going to do after I graduate, I'm going to move home, take a year out and just focus on music and have a proper go at it and see if I can really turn this into a career. So that was the plan, but that didn't happen. Because that's when I actually got into radio. So yeah, it kind of put a stop to that slightly.
BBC Radio Ulster you were first started off on?
Yeah.
That's
what age?
What age was I? I must have been 22.
God,
I think.
that's mad.
Was it?
So young.
Maybe 22, 23, around that age.
How did that like come about then, the Radio Ulster thing?
Yeah, I was actually I was up in Belfast just staying over with a few friends, and I got an email from a producer, and he'd known me because of my music, and you know, I was very invested and involved in the music scene, and he just basically said like, hey, if you're interested, would you be up for coming in for a meeting, maybe getting involved on the show, whether it's on air chatting about new music or even going to gigs and doing some written reviews for our website. And I was like, of course. In my head, this is where I was like gonna get my music played on this station. Yeah. So I had a whole ulterior motive, but I went in for the meeting as such. And it was a really good chat, and I was like, oh, actually, yeah, this could be fun. And then I ended up doing some voice tests, as they do in radio. So you get to have a wee go in the studio. And Rory, the producer, he was like, right, I'm going to give you a scenario. You've just went on, well, this had actually happened. I just come back from a songwriting camp in Cavan, which was a fantastic experience. And he was like, right, so you've been here. I want you to tell me about that experience in a minute and try not to say the word It was so hard.
So that was difficult.
Yeah, he was like, no likes, no ums, because they're just dead space.
Oh God.
Oh my
I don't
word.
think I could do that.
Yeah.
We would be. They never want us. Like.
Yeah. But it was so hard, and then I did it a couple of times, and the more I did it, because I was nearly replaying, I was like, oh, actually this is okay. And getting to chat about music, it was a lot of fun. I definitely got put through my paces.
Yeah.
But
would they scold you now if you did ever say them or anything like that?
No, I don't get scolded, but say if I was saying too much, I would, constructive criticism. It's like, you could have maybe said that in a better way, or thought about what you were going to say before you said it.
Yeah.
Because that's usually what happens when you do go, or it's because you're thinking. Yeah.
I suppose when you're listening to radio though, like, you don't pick up on them things. It's that's so. Yeah, what was it like then whenever you done the test? Was there like a big length of time before they were like, it's green light, or what was the initial like sort of proposal from their end, and you were like, oh wow?
Yeah, I mean, the thing was, I didn't even know I was being tested. I was like, this is a bit of fun, I'm enjoying this. I was like, I want to have a go on the desk, and basically kept doing voice tests. We actually had the producer call up somebody and was like, right, Gemma, you're gonna interview them. First interview I ever did, I was like, oh God, okay, here we go. And I was so nervous. And then actually the second interview I did, because we were just going for it, 2 interviews one day, was Phil Taggart, who at the time was on Radio 1 doing the Chillis show.
Yeah.
And to me, I was like, Phil's this big celebrity. Oh my God, I was sweating. I was like, I'll have to ask him about his books. I'm like, how's your book? It wasn't great at all, but it was very funny. And then I think the next week, they asked me to come down to a local festival in Limavady. It's called Stendhal Festival. And they basically had me do like a co-present with the current presenter at the time, and it was visualized and everything, and I was doing interviews and we did a show, and it was really exciting. And I was also playing at that festival like 3 times, so I was wrecked. I was so tired, but I had the most fun. And then about a week or 2 after, the producer had emailed me and was like, hi, can we have a meeting? The boss is gonna come along too. And I was like, oh my God, I've wrecked Stendhal. I did a really bad job, and I'm just getting called into this meeting to get shouted at or something, But actually, they offered me a job then, and yeah, it was so embarrassing. All I could say, I went, oh wow. That was my response. And I was like, oh God. I was like, that's so embarrassing. But yeah, I was just so taken aback by it, because the thought that they'd want me to be on air and actually speak, I thought was crazy, but of course I accepted, Yeah.
And was that ever something you thought you would do?
Absolutely not. I would say to anybody who knows me, I can barely string a sentence together on a good day. So it never was. I think it's because when I was growing up, it's not really an industry where someone's like, you could go into radio. It's not as big a thing, or it wasn't back then, whereas podcasts and things now, they're a lot bigger. Whereas back then I just didn't think it was ever a possibility. I didn't listen to much radio, but actually when I got into it, I found I really, really enjoyed it, and it kind of went hand in hand with what I was doing music wise. So I thought, why not give it a go?
So what was the initial gig? What was the gig? Is it what you're doing now, or?
Yeah, so ATL introducing on Radio Ulster, which is basically the new music show for Irish music essentially, and it's like the regional introducing show for Northern Ireland. So yeah, it's mad still that I get to just chat about new music that I love. It's crazy.
And people send you their songs and all. We were kind of having a chat about this before. Like, I think that's mad. Like, because you'd think that if you're working in radio, like, people are just like, right, you rock up, press record. They're like, we have all this like sitting ready for you, but you actually sift through the songs yourself and like select stuff.
Yeah, I do. Myself and the team, we basically spend our whole week, trying to put the playlist together and seeing what will work. And because my show essentially, it's a specialist music show, that's why I do have kind of control over the playlist. Whereas, you'll find on the likes of Cool FM and Q, they'll probably have, maybe on their specialist shows it might be different, but on their main sort of daytime show there will be a playlist, an A list, a B list, a C list, that has been pre-selected by their music team essentially. But yeah,
that's cool.
Yeah.
Throwing shade.
Not at all. Not at all. It's all love. It's all love.
They're rubbish. It's cool though that you like get to sift, like you said, like music. You obviously have a big passion for music, so the fact that you get to like listen to other people as well, and like, have you ever listened to stuff and it's like, holy, they should be big? Or I suppose you've listened to stuff as well, and you're like, this is trash. Yeah.
There's actually there's so many incredible artists out there that sometimes I am shocked that, this is a debut single. There's actually a guy at the moment called Siku. He's a London-based artist. He's only like 18, 19. And he dropped his debut single a couple of months ago, released his debut EP there recently, and it's phenomenal. Like, I've seen him live a couple of times, and it's given kind of like Sam Smith, Adele goosebumps when you hear him sing. It's honestly incredible. I'm like, oh my god, you're incredible. I can't believe you're not massive yet, but it definitely will be. And there's so many that come through and you're just left in awe.
Yeah.
Would you say that happens a lot with like people who are coming through and they are amazing talents but just somehow don't make it?
I actually would, and it's really annoying because so many people deserve to be in the spotlight, but one of the worst things about the music industry is it's so oversaturated.
Yeah.
So, you could be incredible, but somebody else is incredible and you have a similar sound, but maybe the other person's a little bit more marketable. So they're going to go with somebody else, which is so annoying, but it's a tough one to crack sometimes.
Yeah.
What's it like from your point of view though? Like, obviously you do, like, you're an artist as well. Like, is it sort of like, how do you balance the two? Like,
terribly. What I will say, actually, since getting into radio, I have not focused on my artist project as much as I would have liked to, but I just like, when I get focused on something, I get very into it, so it is really hard to balance, but it's also still nice being an artist because I know the amount of time that the people have spent putting that song together and on their artwork, and the amount of money it goes into being a DIY musician, especially if you don't have backing from a label, you're fully independent. It's so expensive, and you might have to work a job that you absolutely hate just to save up to record that album. And even then it still probably won't be to the highest quality that you want because it's so expensive. But
that's a missed opportunity for you. You should just play your own songs on the radio then.
I wish I could, but unfortunately it's not allowed, otherwise I'd be all over that.
Are you not allowed to play your own music?
No, because one, it would be a bit of a boring listen, me being like, here's another one for me.
Another one.
Yeah. And everyone's like, she just plays her own music, God. But no, I think it's one of those things, it's a conflict of interest, I can't really be playing my own music if I'm going to be benefiting off it,
But then I take it other hosts are allowed to play you.
Yeah, they can still
like
play me.
Say you come out with an absolute banger in the morning, like, are Radio 1 going to be like, no?
Well, no. Well, if they like it and the music team approves it and all that, then they can definitely play that. It's not like, oh, that's Gemma, we can't play that, So hopefully we'll write something good enough to get it on. But yeah, so luckily that's still able to happen.
Yeah.
How hard is it to get a song on the radio?
Tommy's been working on a mix.
Are you? Is this your pitch? Are you?
Tommy just slides across a USB.
Is this why I'm here?
Listen that later on.
I think it depends. Like, I think it's really important to aim for local radio first, because that's going to be substantially easier than, maybe aiming for networks straight away, especially if you're fully independent and don't have any contacts or ins. So it really depends, and I think it's where you target your song to as well. You have to make sure you're pitching it to the right show. So I would say it is hard, but it helps when there are shows like my own show that's looking for new music. That's the place to go if that's what you're doing. And I think it's really important. I think all radio stations should have some sort of new music outlet, but I'm biased. But yeah, so it can be hard, and it's just really if the song's good enough, then it will get played.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's just that it really comes down to the songwriting, I guess. Yeah.
And if like someone was listening to this that like maybe wanted to get music on your show, like what, like is there things that advice you would give in terms of like what not to do, or is there like certain things that like stand out when you're listening to it?
I think originality for me really stands out. The lyrics, the melody, I need something there that I can remember as well. And I think just being authentic is really important for me when I'm listening, because you do get sent a lot of songs that do sound the same, or they do sound like, I'm trying to think of an artist who's big at the moment. I don't know, Adele. Say they sound like Adele, but not as good.
Yeah.
What's
You
the
know
point?
what? Yeah, exactly. Like what? That's Adele copycat rather than their own thing. So I think with advice wise, just make sure it's a good quality recording as well. You know, we've had some things where you have heard like somebody turn a page over and stuff, and you're like, oh, you maybe could have learned the words, or you know what I mean. It's wee things like that, and like even just giving us a bit of information about yourself, especially if you're a brand new artist. You know, if your name's Josh and you're from Belfast and that's all you've put in, all I can really say is this is Josh from Belfast. Whereas if he has a really fun, interesting fact, or, you know, he's really into certain music, or is like, oh, if you like Kendrick, you'll love this from Josh from Belfast, you know, that really helps me as a radio presenter as well. So I would just say good song structure, authenticity, and well recorded too, if you can, to your best of your ability. I'm not, you know, I don't want something that's cost thousands of pounds, but no page turning.
Learn the words.
In the background or something.
Yeah.
Who's kind of the people that you would listen to? Obviously, like you've new and up and coming artists, but like, is there anybody who you like that you look up to or listen to all the time?
I would listen to a lot of Amy Winehouse, actually. It was something my mom actually would have listened to a lot when I was younger, and then I've just been obsessed ever since. Would listen to a lot of her. Mahalia as well, fantastic artist. She's she's established, but she is still a newer artist, I guess. She's actually playing in Belfast later this year. I don't know, I work for a PR team there. But yeah, she's fantastic. And then Bob Marley too. Really love that growing up. So artists like that, kind of R&B, soul. I was about to ask, have you ever met any? Obviously, Amy Winehouse and Bob Marley are going to be quite like unachievable, but like, have you ever met anybody where you're like, holy moly, like fangirling type thing? Because you've met a lot of people. I've met a few. I actually pride myself in not being a fangirl. Just because I know I would feel awkward if somebody was like, oh my god, and then that makes me cringe a wee bit. But I'd say the first person I kind of met as such was actually Gary Lightbody from Snow Patrol, and I got to interview him at a live event, which was crazy. I was thrown into it. It was my first ever big event like that, and I was like, okay, he's just a normal person. He's just a normal person. But you know,
oh my
Gary
God,
Lightbody. Hey, but yeah, so met him, and I thought that was crazy.
You tried so hard to be chill when he walked in.
Yeah,
You're like, who, this guy?
That's I do wonder if, like, you know, when you're trying to be chill, does it look chill, or does it just actually look like you're sweating?
That's one of the things, the harder you try, the less natural it looks, really.
Yeah, I think so.
You feel like you look super cool, but you're not.
Yeah.
And was that like for radio you interviewed him?
Yeah, so that was it was back in 2019. The Northern Ireland Music Prize was in the Ulster Hall, and basically Radio Ulster were covering the event, and myself and Stephen McCauley were co-hosting the radio coverage of it. And Gary Lightbody was there because Snow Patrol were doing a little performance and got like an award, because it's an award show. And so just kind of got thrown in at the deep end that way. And I always look back now and think I was so underprepared for that whole show. I was stressed the whole time. But I look back, I was like, actually, it was fun, but now I know how to prepare for things like that. Yeah. So
that's cool. Like as well as that, obviously, then you do, and when you got signed on to BBC Radio Ulster, then came the big one, like BBC Radio 1, that's big. That's crazy.
It's a bit mad.
Yeah.
I still pinch myself, you know,
Yeah.
thinking about it, because I was so...
How long were you
unaware.
doing what you were doing at BBC Radio Ulster before the Radio 1 call came?
So I'm trying to think, I started Radio Ulster in like October 2019, and then COVID happened. So I was doing that during COVID times, and then towards the end, was it the end of that? I think I started 2021. Yeah, 2021 is when I started, essentially, with Radio 1. But I ended up having a Zoom with like the head of introducing and the head of Radio 1 at the time, just because they both started in the new position, wanted to say hello to everyone. They were looking for demos, essentially. So I was like, I can do a demo.
Yeah.
I was obviously shitting them, like, you know, but I was trying to act confident. I was like, yeah, I can do a demo. And I actually remember saying to my producer at Radio Ulster, I was like, I have to produce a demo here. Like, can we go into studio to do it? And it was, I was called the bomb shelter studio, because it was like the worst studio, but it was the only one you were allowed in during kind of COVID times. So the sound wasn't very good at all. And we were in there all day trying to make the perfect demo. So playing songs over, like, that one was from this new band, blah, 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 and trying to pretend that you had text and everything. So I remember saying something really stupid, like, oh, Pete in the bath says he loves that. Because, you know, because, like, you know, the kind of things that we say on Radio 1, it's silly humour. So I was like, they'll love that. Listen back to the demo. It was awful. It was really bad. But I had no more time, so I just had to send it in. So I sent it over, didn't hear anything for about a week. And I was like, oh God, they hated it. I was like, I would have hated it too. And and then I did hear from the head of introducing. It was Tom at the time. And he was like, oh, so sorry, we just haven't got round to listen to this yet. Could you send us the demo again? I was like, yeah, I can. Well, did I get into the good studio and make a better demo then, and then sent that one on, and then got the call maybe like a week later. So it was madness.
A big spot to fill for you, like, for, well, not to mention, like, it's BBC Radio 1, but it's the introduction show you do.
Yeah.
And the guy who did that, you know, before you was like, he's pretty big, like.
Yeah, Hugh Stevens is a legend. Absolute legend. I was terrified. Really terrified, because he had done that show for years, and he started broadcasting when he was very young, and he's just so knowledgeable about music, and you know, big boots to fill. So I was so scared. I was like, this sweet girl from Derry's come in, you know, trying to talk about music. But yeah, I just tried to do my best with what I could and put my own spin on it and make it feel like a different show. So hopefully I've done that so far. But no, it's great.
That's class though. And like, whenever you got that call, what was kind of running through your head at that point when you were like, yeah, you're going like to like the pinnacle, like we were talking about this, is the pinnacle of radio,
like shows and radio, like in radio, like radio.
It was, do you know what, it was absolute madness, because I got that call, and Tom, the head of introducing, was like, oh, Alan's gonna jump on this call with us, is that okay? I was like, yeah, okay. I was like, oh, what have I done wrong now? And then obviously got offered the job. I was in the office at the time prepping for the Radio Ulster show that evening, and I was just so taken aback. Like, I felt physically sick, dizzy. It was really weird. I've never felt anything like it, because I had to go to a private room and everything. Got off the phone, like walked through the room we were in, and my producer and assistant producer looked at me and like, are you all right? And I was like, yeah, just gonna go to the bathroom here. I was shitting myself. It's like, what? I was like, surely not. I haven't actually been offered this. I had to like go calm myself down. And the funny thing was, like, they said to me, you can't tell anyone. Like, you're not allowed to tell anyone.
Jesus.
And I was like, oh,
How
okay.
do you do that?
Exactly, how do you do that? Well, did I ring my mum straight away? I rang her, and she went. I was really nervous though, because for a while I did like I was like, I need to somehow they've tracked my phone, they're going to be able to
That's
hear
what I was gonna
it.
say. They tapped your phone.
Literally, I was very, very concerned that
You
they
had
had.
one job.
I know. I was like, they're going to take it off me now
Yeah.
after telling my mum. But I did ring her, and she went, Are you sure? Are you sure that's what they offered you? I was like, yeah, no, I'm sure. And she was like, really? I was like, yeah, I know. It's mad. It's crazy. So yeah, then I calmed myself down, but it was really mental.
Yeah.
And I remember like a few days after, or my producer, we were like sharing a lift home or something, and he was like, oh, I wonder who could be taking over that show, or that would be mad. And he was putting forward suggestions of people, and I was like, oh, maybe, yeah. And I was like, I can't hold it anymore, I'll just tell you. And he was like, what? I was like, I know, it's crazy. So yeah, it took a wee while for that news to
It'd
settle.
be a bad job if you were like, what about me? And he's like, no, you be shit.
Well, he also was like, are you sure? I was like, yeah. But I think it's because as well, I was so fresh to radio. Like even now I would still say I'm fresh, and I've been in it a couple of years. It was just madness that they had the faith in me to even be like, do you want a show?
It is really big.
It's such a quick trajectory, like
it's mental.
From like not really thinking about radio to Radio Ulster then to Radio 1, like.
Yeah. And that's something I always actually, for myself, I feel a wee bit, I get imposter syndrome about it, because getting into radio, like, it's not that easy. It really isn't. And don't get me wrong, I've put in the work and I've really tried to, better myself as a presenter since I've been in the industry and since I started. But it is hard to get into those slots, and the media is it's such a competitive industry as well, and it's very cutthroat. So the fact that I was able to get there in the time that I did is mental, and it is kind of unheard of. So yeah, that's why there's people who've come through like student radio and stuff like that, and I'm like, oh, you've been in the game for a while. And I'm like, I've just walked in. And that's why it's so like scary sometimes when I first started being in the room with other radio presenters, I was like, I shouldn't be here. I felt like I hadn't earned my stripes as such. So yeah.
It's a bit awkward when they're like, maybe someone just got on the radio and they're like, oh, how long have you been doing radio? And you're like,
so awkward.
Oh, 2 years.
Yeah.
And you're like, what?
No, it really is awkward. I actually remember one of my first times being in London, met up with like my producer. We just recorded the show and met up with a couple of other presenters, and everyone was talking about how they got into radio and their radio stories, and I was like, oh, I got an email one day, and and everyone was like, I've been doing student radio and started my own pirate radio. I'm like, oh, happy. That's great. So yeah.
And like, what was it like? I'm sure you've met like some of the other presenters in Radio 1, like Greg James and Scott Mills, all the big ones. Like, is there anyone that's give you like really good advice, or you've had really good conversations with that you've been like?
I don't know about advice, but that's because I don't ask for advice. I probably should. But everybody that I've met has been really lovely. Greg is really lovely, really supportive. Clara as well, fantastic. I actually remember one of the first things I did, myself and Clara did a co-host. It was when she was doing the 10:30 show, the mid-morning show. And I went on air and they were doing a handover with Greg. And that was the first time I met both of them, and they are like giants in the industry. So I was so scared and so nervous, but they both made me feel so at ease. Like Greg came in, gave me a hug, and was like, oh, welcome, this is the first time I'm getting to meet you in person since you joined, and all of that. And same with Clara. I just thought that's so nice, because it can be so intimidating going into an environment like that as well. And I think something as well that Jaguar, she does the new music kind of dance show on Radio 1. She was like, just be yourself and get behind the music that you love, and it'll always come across on radio. And she's always like a big supporter too. And even when now like I've started DJing myself, she's like, come round to mine and we'll I'll teach you how to mix properly. And I'm like, please help me, because I need all the help I can get. So
I suppose it's sort of like what you were saying there about the music and being authentic. I suppose radio is sort of the same as just like be yourself, like, because like how else do you stand out, I suppose?
Yeah, no, exactly. And I think that's what's really important, and why I suppose certain radio shows do really well, because it is about the personality of the presenter sometimes, because you know I've listened to the radio and felt like I'm just having a chat with my friend, or my friend's chatting, and I'll be laughing along in the car by myself like a madman, you know. And I always wonder what that looks like if you're driving past and see that. But I think it's really important, you know, getting like your passion across and just being you as well.
I suppose though, from your end, like you're obviously saying like you've a bit of like an imposter syndrome type thing, but at the same time, from an outsider looking in, like a lot of stuff, you know, you can go on radio, and if you're good at, you know, the whole talking aspect of things, they probably just, there's certain bits that from their perspective they can like tweak you to like shape you into a good presenter. But then the other side that they can't teach is like you genuinely have a passion for music, so like you're in the perfect role because you like listening to the tunes that you're being sent, whereas if someone walked in who just was good like class at radio but had no interest in new music, no interest in music at all, it couldn't function. Like, so you have the skill that can't be taught, like you have the thing that they can't teach you, whereas obviously all the rest of the stuff you can like learn and mold and whatnot, which is great. Like, but I suppose like what was the first show you did? Was it with someone else, or was it kind of like solo? What was that like?
The first Radio 1 show. It was an interesting one because it was a pre-recorded show, and I did it in Radio Ulster. Did I? Yeah, I did. First one was done in Radio Ulster, and I was in the studio by myself because at the time, all of my producers, my executive producer, my assistant producer, all were in London, so they were over Zoom. So I had never, for months, I hadn't met them in real life. We just knew each other over Zoom. So that first show, it was like a lot of fun, but it was scary because I didn't really know these people, and I was like, oh, I have to prove myself, you know, and obviously trying to fill huge shoes as well. That was another pressure added. So I was actually really thankful that my first show I got to do from Radio Ulster, because it was nearly like my constant, because I had been there before. It was, you know, my what's the word when you're things, you know, when you've, what is the word that's really going to annoy me? You're used to being somewhere. Comfortable, yeah. So I was comfortable in that environment. So it was really nice being able to do that first show. But I remember when it went out, so I think we might have recorded it on a Wednesday and it went out the Sunday. I remember listening back, because I don't really listen back to all my shows. Sometimes I would, just to try and be like, oh, I said that funny, need to work on that for next week. But I remember listening to it. I was in my house, I think me and my housemates were all like listening to it together, and it was just so surreal. It was so weird hearing my voice say, oh, Gemma on Radio 1, and here's another one, and blah blah blah. It was a really surreal moment. It's madness.
It's class. And like, what's been some of the highlights from, like, you've always been to like loads of festivals and stuff, and like we had Radio 1's big weekend recently. Like, what's been like highlights like that? Is there anyone you've met or any experiences you've had that have really stuck out?
I think one of my highlights, I actually have a few, but one of them would definitely be Glastonbury last year. I got to go, and it was just incredible. I will say it nearly broke me. It really nearly did break me, but it was just such a fantastic experience. The fact that I get to go to these festivals and introduce artists on the stage, because we would host the stage there, the introducing stage, it's just mad. And we put on secret sets and we'll have past introducing people play. So I got to meet Youngblood. He did like a DJ set on our stage, which was class. And then Ashaniko I got to meet too, which is a real random one. It was just an incredible time. And then also that year I got to go to Texas for the first time, out at this place called South by Southwest. It's like a showcase festival. A lot of artists travel out there. So it was in Austin in Texas, and it was just an incredible week filled with like tacos, good music, just bumping into loads of industry people. But you nearly felt like you were in London, because there were so many people from there over, and then there were bands from here over as well. So it just felt like such a nice little family vibe. It was really fun.
You get to do a lot of traveling then.
Yeah. Which can be tiring sometimes. I'm such a tired person, but I don't complain because I'm very blessed being able to, do what I do and get to go to all these festivals that I never probably would have experienced before. I've got Reading coming up at the end of August, which should be fun. Really looking forward to that. It's always a fun one to do. So
who's like some of the favorite people you've seen live? Because like we love going to like gigs and stuff. So like, is there anyone recently you've seen that's been unreal live, or anyone that's really stood out?
Oh, I feel like you want. Do you know who Olivia Dean is? No.
Oh
my! I didn't want to assume, but I was.
We go to a lot of gigs and stuff. Do you know this? No.
But she is somebody I would highly recommend seeing live. It's just incredible, her music. I don't know. I wouldn't be an emotional person, like sometimes you hear a song and it makes you cry. I wouldn't really get me, but when I see her perform live, I'm just in a fit of tears. Can't cope. She's just incredible. So she's really good. Weirdly enough, I didn't think I would enjoy this as much as I did, but a big weekend I saw Lewis Capaldi play. Fantastic, like really, really fantastic. It took me by surprise because I thought it would just be a bit like, it's not that it's dreary. It's not. That's a bad thing to say, but it's just a bit.
It is though. Like we went to see him, and we went to see him in Belsonic last year, and it was like it's not really like we went to see Sam Fender recently, and it's proper like you're up, you're bouncing, you're having a good time. Whereas Lewis Capaldi, it was kind of like swaying.
Yeah, everyone's in their fields, that kind of thing. Yeah.
But he is so popular because it's so funny. His personality does not match his music.
Yeah, I know, but I kind of like that juxtaposition. It's really, really good.
He's funny, like in between the songs and all. It's just not what you expect. But I think like Adele sort of the same. Like when you first listen to Adele and then you hear her speak, you're like, what the fuck?
Yeah. No, exactly. I saw Sam Fender as well, actually. Nice. Not recently, but last year maybe. It was last year. Incredible.
Yeah.
So
have you met him?
good. I haven't met him in person, but I was on a Zoom call with him for like a competition thing that they were doing. So I've chatted to him briefly over
Tommy
Zoom.
would love that.
So
Tommy loves Sam Fender. Because we did a podcast recently and we were talking about Sam Fender, and I put in the title and Thomas is like, I have to add Sam Fender and notice me. We were at the concert recently. We've been to see him a couple of times.
Yeah, seen him in Dublin was unreal, and then we went to Belfast. But like, I feel like it was one. I don't know if you've been to any gigs like that where like, if people maybe go because they like one song.
Yeah.
Whereas like, when I love him, like, and I've like listened to so much of his music, and I think like,
all of the songs.
Pretty much. Like,
so hardcore fan.
You know when there's songs that you're like, this is a class song, but people don't know the words, so like the atmosphere wasn't as good as whereas Dublin was lethal. Because even when we were leaving, somebody like stopped us and was like saying about the podcast. And he was like, I don't really feel like he was up for that, was he? And I was like, the crowd was a bit shit though. Because the difference when like at the end he played, 17 going on there, compared to like when he's playing like Play God or like Dead Boys and all, was just so different. And I was just like, this is so weird.
Yeah. Was that like
Thomas was pure reaching around like, get hyped everybody. Don't let me down in front of Sam.
Was that at a festival or at a Sam Fender gig?
Sam Fender gig, yeah.
Really? Yeah. That's really interesting, actually. Yeah.
You're slagging me. If this was Mumford and Sons, how many times have you seen Mumford and Sons?
You wouldn't get an ungodly amount of times.
Mumford and Sons will play Dublin and Belfast, and Ross will go to both.
Really?
For a couple of days. So
I don't know. Like I get like Mumford and Sons would probably be one of the very few. Like I like Mumford and Sons. I like Sam Fender. I like a lot of like different music, but I'd listened a lot like Mumford and Sons, and then I listened to a lot of Gang of Youths as well. I got really into them recently. But like I've been to see them a couple of times live. They're really good, unreal. But yeah, I don't know. Mumford and Sons. I just like I listened to them when I was younger, like really young. Like we were like they came out. I don't know what Say No More is like 2009 or something. But I started listening to them and just like literally just carried through. And even recently, like Marcus Mumford has brought his own album, like self-titled. I was obsessed with it. Just anything that they do, I'm like, yeah, that's class.
So they couldn't write a bad song in your eyes?
To me, they haven't. No, I've never listened to a Mumford and Sons song and went that shit.
Really?
Honestly, no. Even their covers and all that there, class.
True fan. Can do no wrong in your eyes.
To be fair, it took me a while to get used to when they brought out, because they did Say No More and then they done Babel and then they brought out Wilder Mind and they completely changed their tunes
that's when
from
I
Electric.
started liking Wilder Minds.
It took me a little bit long to it took me a while to get used to it, but now I love it all. Like, you know, it's cool. And even Delta, when they released Delta, it's quite niche.
I was listening to Delta, the song the other day. It's such a good song.
Yeah, but it's like one of the only, like, I get what you're talking about, like the music. I don't know what it is. I'll listen to like a pile of music. I just have no real, like, I like it, but I have no real. But Mumford & Sons songs are always like connected.
Yeah.
It's
like
different.
this hits deep.
Yeah. Well, I think sometimes when you say, I don't know, if it is something that you listen to growing up or you do have that connection with it, it'll always hit different. Like for me, Arctic Monkeys, massive fan.
Yeah.
I'm not as fussed on their newer stuff, but the first 3 albums I am obsessed with. Like, that's what I was doing instead of studying for like A levels and GCSEs. I was listening to Arctic Monkeys, and I got to see them for the first time live last year, and I lost my mind. It was incredible. So, and I think there's something just about those songs that, you know, I've just really connected with. They're conditioned into me. That's the only way I could describe it, you know.
I feel like that about the Killers as well. Like my mum always would have listened to them growing up, and then like we seen them last year. Unreal. So good.
Yeah. I remember my first Mumford & Sons concert. It's 2017. Lucinda took me. My fiance, she took me. It's like she surprised me with tickets, and I was like, "Oh my god, we're going!"
And then that day, you're like, "I'm gonna marry this girl."
She's the one.
And that's when you proposed.
Yeah, that's when I proposed. Just wait 6 years, we'll get there. But yeah, we've seen them an ungodly amount of times. But yeah, I think like seeing people live changes your perspective, I think, on their music. Like, I definitely, like, whenever I seen Mumford & Sons live, I was like, this makes me love them 10 times more. What about you? We're
mad about Ryan, like
Ryan
McMullen.
Oh yeah, Ryan's great. Yeah.
We're going to 2 concerts now in December.
First
he
name
put out,
basis, Ryan's great. Shay's like,
I think he
get
put
me
out
in there.
the first one in December, and then he released one like 2 hours later. He was doing Christmas Eve.
Oh my god.
And we always go see him at Christmas time, but he didn't play this year, so we had to get both of them. Like, so I'm mad about him. Like. I think he's brilliant, but like, he's funny because
he doesn't
I don't
have
think
new music out though. Like that's what annoys me.
He did.
Like,
he put out an album like last year.
No, he did.
He did.
Are you two gonna scrap here?
Yeah. Don't talk about Ryan like that.
But he's an odd one, like, because I find his concerts, like, you know, like if they're open air concerts, they're not as good. Whereas he's like a better singer in like more confined space, like smaller spaces. It sort of it sounds better.
Like your bedroom.
Exactly.
Strum for me, Ryan.
No, it just doesn't. It doesn't seem right. The setting has to be right too. Like he's not sort of a festival person. Like you go see him at a festival, but like the likes of.
He supported Tom Jones there, didn't he?
Where was that in?
The Balsani.
Yeah, oh yeah.
I met him in a pub. I met him in pub movies. He walked past me, and I wouldn't honestly, like, I know him to look up. I messaged into Shay. I was like, "Yo, here, Ryan McMullen's here," and you were like,
straight on the yard.
No way, send pics. I really like sneakily tried to take a photo. It just wasn't working. I said, "He's drinking wine," and Shay was like, "Yeah, he would drink wine." And then Shay was like, "I forget what
I
you
have
said."
such an embarrassing story.
What?
Wait, there was this gig. He put on this gig, and it was like, I think it was the Custom House Square one he done, and it was like, if you buy a poster, he put up in a story, buy a poster, and there's like some sort of secret thing is going to happen if you buy a poster. Right, so I bought 2 posters. There's only like 100. There's like a limited 100, and it came out like a couple of weeks later. It was like, oh, there's going to be this intimate gig. So it was just like a wee small pub, and there's only 100 people at it. We were like, oh, this is brilliant. Like, we're actually going to be right beside him and all that. So we went to it, and we were standing at the bar, and I was like to my girlfriend, I was like, will I buy him a drink? Like, will I buy him a drink? Like, thinking like, will he come over and maybe talk to us or something after? And she was like, yeah, go do it, go do it. So I went up to the bar, and I was like, can I like buy him a drink or whatever? And the girl at the bar was like, yeah, like, no bother. And like, she was a bit confused, like, why? And bought the drink and all, and he like, she just sort of sat it in the bar, and then his manager like took it down to him, and that was it. He didn't know.
Oh no!
That was for me.
Are you enjoying that, Ryan?
Oh my god!
I'm pretty sure the bar was giving him free drink all night.
They probably were.
Oh
no!
Shay slips a wee love note in the pint.
I love because you and I would have been pure buzzing, like sitting imagining how it's gonna go, and they're just like, I will take off that.
Yeah.
I find the group chat whenever I put it in. I said, Ryan McMullen's and Pug Uglies, and you and Aoife was like, actually, and then you were like, no way, pick her, it didn't happen. And then of course Thomas, business as usual, was like, ask him to come on the podcast. And then for you goes, I said, is he approachable enough? And you goes, yeah, buy him a coffee martini and he'll chat to you all night. I was like,
That's what he was drinking.
Weird. And then I ended up getting a photo. And then what was I said, yeah, I'm looking a photo with him, not a ride.
You got a picture of them?
I got a picture of us.
Oh, no way.
But that was an awkward experience. I walked out and I was like, yo, are you Ryan McMullen? And he's like, yeah. I was like, my mate loves you, can I get a photo? And so I basically just went, I don't know you at all, but my mate loves you, so can I get a photo?
That
He's
is
like,
so funny.
yeah.
Nicest thing to say to someone.
I know, but like at the time I didn't really know how to approach him. I was like,
Yeah.
but I didn't want it. Like,
Dick
what would
move,
it?
lad,
Oh, Ryan, I'm such a big fan. He's like, oh, what music have you listened to?
Well, I mean,
And
he's
I'm
not
like,
going to quiz you and be like,
What's
tell
your
me the
favourite
first
song?
3 songs
What's
I
your
wrote.
favourite song?
Sing them
he
now.
may do, I don't know. Like,
These 5 songs.
Were you at my secret gig in Belfast?
did you buy my poster?
Did you buy me a pint there?
That was you. He's gonna hear
Have
this
you
someday.
actually had
and
a
he's gonna-
conversation with him before? No.
Yeah, I met him then after it.
Oh,
He took
yeah.
photos of everyone after, like, yeah.
I was gonna say, like, the fact that Ross has talked to him more than you.
No,
You've been to like
no.
30 gigs. Though.
I sent the
Don't
photo
worry.
and she replied, goes, my God, he looks so young.
Looks so-
What the
So
hell?
young.
Poor Ram.
No, he's a lovely chap. I actually did a songwriting camp with him.
Nice.
Maybe like last year or something, or the year before, I can't remember. In Newry of all places.
Yeah.
I know it was really, really good experience, and I just got to write, and like everybody got to know each other, which was really good. But yeah, nobody was buying him pints, to be fair there. But
If you're
you know,
speaking to him again, you can mention. Like,
oh, aye.
I know this guy.
Funny good
Right.
word.
I can categorically tell you, she will not. There's no chance. I suppose, like, looking at like your music yourself, like, what's the kind of aspirations? Obviously, like, you've understandable that radio's kind of taken the front seat, but like, you know, obviously with the whole music scene for yourself, like, where do you see that going? Are you kind of have plans that you're involved with at the minute, or?
Couple of loose plans. But I definitely want to gig a bit more again. I'd really enjoy kind of doing that. I have some music written and recorded, just need to release it. So that's the kind of plan, is to get that out at some point. Just start being an artist again a bit more.
Yeah.
Now that I feel like I've kind of solidified radio me a bit more,
Yeah.
you know, I feel like I can explore artist me again a bit more,
Yeah.
which, like, it should be nice to do.
What would the goal be for music for you? What does it look like in terms of, is there somewhere you'd want to play or something you'd want to achieve when it comes to your music? Like, what is the goal?
I would say world domination. Like, that's yeah, it's very bold. We'll see what happens. But no, I think for me, it is like playing at festivals. I love to play the likes of Glastonbury. Would be a fantastic one to play. I would love to be able to, you know, check that off the list. The likes of Reading, Leeds, kind of more UK festivals, I think. Maybe all together now, actually, down here. That would be a nice one to play. I'm going this year for the first time. Check it out, see how it is. So that would be a nice one to play as well. And maybe Electric Picnic again. That would be a good one to do, because I did that in 2019. It's pre-COVID. It was like the best experience ever, and I had so much fun. So I'd love to do that again. Yeah.
And would you ever consider, like, are you, even like taking music aside, like, I know you did like a podcast series with the BBC, but like it, like, which is kind of definitely not what you normally do in terms of like your whole thing where radio is introducing new music, whereas like what was the podcast sort of series you done was more like real talk, like talking to people about like issues and stuff that arise, and like, would that be something you'd want to continue to do? Or
Yeah, I'd really love to do more of that, kind of delving into social issues, because it's things that I'm passionate about. And I always think, you know, with music presenting, sometimes you don't get to hear my opinions as much, like maybe on the music, but on actual societal things. It's not like I'm hugely outspoken or have mad views or anything like that, but I think it's so important to have conversations about, you know, topics like race, sexism, things like that, because they're really, really important. And I think now more than ever, it's a bit more important to talk about them, because people are willing to chat about them a bit openly. So I think it's important to kind of cover those topics, and I'd love to delve a bit deeper into them, you know.
Would you ever consider starting your own podcast or anything about that? Or?
Potentially. The only thing that would put me off...
Anyway.
That's true. That's true. I think the only thing that would put me off would be the editing of it. So I just could hire somebody to do that, but I just know the stress. Yeah. You edit my podcast.
We'll release Aaron out to you.
Yeah.
Take cost, fuck all.
But yeah, no, because that can be a task in itself. I would like to, but I think there's a lot of work that goes into it, and it's also setting aside that time to make sure it gets done.
Was that a scary experience doing that sort of podcast series? Because obviously, like you're tackling, like as you say, you're tackling a lot of big topics there, like sexism, race, all that there. Like there's a certain area, like I know that sort of side of things, like if that was brought up and was like, right, we'll talk about it on the podcast, like we would be a bit like, how do we navigate around this? Because you're just waiting for someone to say, well, you said that wrong, or like, what was that like navigating into that world?
It's really hard.
Yeah.
It was really scary for me because I wasn't used to chatting about big topics, and you have to be so careful because at the end of the day, you know, your guests are talking about their experiences, and you don't want to say the wrong thing. You can't also, coming from like a policy side, you can't sit and agree either, because as the host, you essentially have to be what's the word? It's like non-bias. Essentially impartial, that's the word. You know, and there could be some things that you maybe agree on, but at the same time you can't be like, you have to be and it's so important to have the two different sides. So it was really scary going into that, and there were some heavy topics that we kind of covered, and I remember coming out of those, because we did it all over Zoom as well, coming off those Zooms and just being wrecked because there was so much information and so much hardship there that I was like, I can't believe people have experienced this. It's really great to talk about it, but I was like, oh my god. What
were some of the things that kind of came out of that was there anything that shocked you?
I think, you know, for me, like some things to do with like racism and just to hear people's experiences was very like taxing, because I could only imagine how they felt, and it's a hard thing to talk about as well. You know, even what was the topic we did? I'm trying to think of a topic, but it's just social media as well. The kind of whole having to look a certain way, people trolling, kind of online bullying, that sort of thing, and it's a lot. And hearing people's experiences about that, it just really shocked me, some of the comments that I heard from one contributor in particular. You know, just some of the things that she's had said to her, and people overtly sexualizing her, and I was like, that's such a horrible thing to have to deal with on a daily. On the daily. So yeah, I've just learned a lot, and we did a fast fashion one, and one of the mad facts I heard, one of the designers, she used to work for a company, and they would just hire a plane and fly a pile of handbags to Japan, or from Japan maybe, one way or the other, but the plane was for the bags, and that was it.
Oh, it was
like,
just a plane full.
Yeah, and it was just environmentally, that's so bad. You know, so it's just things like that. There were big conversations, and I think, you know, it is scary. I'm not one sometimes to like delve deep into that, even on like a personal level, because conversations like that can be scary, especially when you're opening yourself up, and that's why even when we were doing one about like dating and relationships, I was like, fair play for, you know, just being really open with that, because I don't know if I could, you know, but it was just really, really interesting.
That's cool. We had the girl on, like the relationship coach, and I think that was a big thing for us, because that was like such an open and honest conversation, and today it's probably one of my favorite podcasts, that because we just got into like the nitty gritty, but like the way she addressed things head on was like a breath of fresh air. Like she tackled topics on the podcast that I don't think we'd ever thought we would have talked about on this. But it was great, because you actually feel like, you know, you're using your platform for good. When it comes to like the radio side of things, and obviously like you're putting yourself out there and with your singing and stuff, like how do you kind of navigate the whole social media side? Because obviously radio is your personality, do you know what I mean? So like a lot of people have their social medias and they're well followed and stuff. Like, how do you kind of balance all that there? Do you feel like there's a pressure for you to like be a certain way or whatever, or how do you kind of deal with all that?
I mean, it's more, I think being present is a pressure I find. At the moment, I'm not being very present online, but I do find that is a pressure that's there. Not to be, well, I suppose with social media, not that it's fake, but it's fake. Essentially, you are always going to show like the happy times. You don't really show if you're like crying or something. So I think sometimes, that's a pressure maybe to be there, to be like, oh, I'm busy, blah, blah. And I feel like a lot of freelancers have this. You always need to be busy. And sometimes that can be reflected on social media. Like, look what I'm doing. And it's not even, I don't know who it's for at the end of the day. When you think about it, I try to be like real as I can on my Instagram. I wouldn't be posting, like, if I'm not posting, it's because I'm just not feeling it, you know. I would never put on a persona or anything on my own social media, because then I would just feel fake. I'm also a terrible liar, so I don't think I'd be don't think I'd be very good at that. But I think there is always a pressure to look a certain way, and I think anybody probably feels that when they are in the eye, like, you know, out there a bit as a personality as such, although I wouldn't even call myself a personality. Like, it's probably much.
Probably poor choice of words from my part, because like I suppose like I look at someone like the likes of like your Radio 1 DJs like Greg James and stuff, and obviously like they have like their they have like the Instagram side of things, and like they're posting all the time, and they do kind of that showbiz world kind of like gets elevated, and I suppose like it's cool to see from your perspective that you like, obviously there is pressures there, but it's obviously just being real is the key to it, like. But I think a lot of people would go above and beyond to try and get to that next level, if that makes sense. So, a lot of pressure from that side. But I suppose like what is sort of the plan then? What's next? Like radio, all that there, like the singing and stuff, like what can we see from you soon?
More radio, more hopefully some new music at some point. I'm very like, I probably should have better plans in place just in general, but I'm very like go with the flow sort of person. So I'm just seeing how everything goes, but at the moment, definitely radio, maybe a bit more TV stuff in the works, but and then music essentially, and just going to gigs and hopefully performing at some more gigs too. That's the kind of short-term plan at the moment.
Nice.
Yeah.
If you were to present one TV show, what would it be, you know?
Oh, I would actually love to do, so I've got like two. I would love to do like a Jules Holland style thing, because that'd be so much fun, just having like a live guests and music and get to perform together. I think that would be so much fun. And then there's also part of me that would love to do a morning show. I think that would be so much fun. It's I think, but make it fun.
This morning has a slot open up.
Maybe ask you, just stick a good word in, you know. But I think that they would be like fun ones to do, definitely.
Awesome. We will obviously put all the stuff in the description, so obviously people want to check out your music and stuff. Literally, it's just Gemma Bradley. Search on YouTube and stuff. Anything else you want to plug before we stop?
I think maybe just if you are like a band or an artist and you are making music and you do want to maybe try and get your tracks heard on the radio, you can upload it to bbc.co.uk/introducing, and then I get to listen to it. So please do that.
Awesome.
Sweet.
And listen to the advice at the start.
Yes.
Don't send crap.
Don't be turning pages.
Learn a song.
But listen, thank you very much for coming on, taking the time, and obviously all the best for everything. We look forward to seeing what comes next.
Thanks so much for having me.
All the best.